All right, let's talk about money. But what if everything you think you know about it is wrong? Today, we're diving into this really wild idea that completely reframes our financial system using a super old, super powerful symbol, the Ouroboros. So, the whole thing starts with this quote: "Money is a strange loop. It is a system that creates the reality it measures." Just let that sink in for a second. We're not just talking about coins and bills here. We're talking about a system so powerful it actually shapes the reality it's supposed to be measuring. It's wild. So here's the big question, the one that changes everything. We all think of money as a tool, right? Like a hammer you use to build things. But what if that's the wrong way to look at it? What if money is actually a living creature, an organism with its own rules, its own pulse, its own life cycle? And to really get a handle on this creature, we need to look at an ancient symbol. I'm talking about the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. You see, the Ouroboros is the perfect metaphor for our economy. Why? Because it's a closed loop. There's no outside. Think about it. Every single dollar you spend is a dollar of income for someone else. Every loan a bank makes, your liability, is their asset. The system is constantly, and I mean constantly, feeding itself to stay alive. And there's actually a cool scientific term for this, from biology of all places, autopoiesis. It literally means self-creation. A living cell is a great example. It builds and maintains all its own parts to survive. Well, our financial system? It does the exact same thing. It's a system of payments whose only real goal is to create more payments. It just keeps rebuilding itself from the inside out. You can see this super clearly in that textbook example, the circular flow of income. You go to work, you provide labor, a company pays you for it. Then you take that money and spend it at other companies. And boom, the loop starts all over again. It's this perfect, self-powering engine. It doesn't need a push from the outside. It makes its own energy. Okay, so if we're going with this idea that money is a creature, a giant serpent, what's it made of? What are its scales, you know? And right off the bat, you run into this deep, fundamental tension. On one hand, you've got what we can call autonomous money. Think gold, think Bitcoin. Stuff that has value because of its own properties, its own internal rules. But on the other hand, you have relational money, like credit or debt. It's literally just a promise between two people. Without that relationship, it's totally worthless. And we can actually break this down even more into 4 key parts. You've got the autonomous piece, like Bitcoin, doing its own thing. You have the relational piece, which is all about credit and promises. Then there's the systemic piece. That's your US dollar, your fiat currency. It's valuable because a government says it is. And then, my favorite, the emergent part, the market price. Nobody decides it. It just happens from all the other parts interacting. Okay, but wait. If it's a closed loop just feeding itself, what makes it move? What's the engine? What actually drives change? The answer is kind of mind-bending. It's paradox. Yeah, you heard me right. The system isn't broken because it's full of contradictions. It's powered by them. These aren't bugs in the code that we need to fix. They're features. They're the engine. It's all that constant friction and tension that makes the whole thing move, that forces it to evolve. So, a perfect example of this is something called the impossible trinity. Picture this. A country wants 3 things: a stable currency, money flowing freely across its borders, and control over its own economy. Sounds reasonable, right? Well, the paradox is you can only ever have 2. You have to pick. And that impossible choice, that constant trade-off, literally shapes the entire global financial system. And then there's the big one, the Triffin dilemma. This is the paradox at the very heart of the US dollar being the world's currency. See, for everyone else to have enough dollars to trade with, the US has to constantly send more dollars out into the world than it takes in. It has to run a deficit. But the more it does that, the more it risks eroding trust in the dollar itself. It's a classic Ouroboros situation. It has to eat itself to feed the world. So how does all this tension actually show up in the markets we see every day? Well, there's a word for it: reflexivity. This is the idea that our beliefs about the market don't just reflect reality, they create it. It's a powerful feedback loop. Let me walk you through how it works. It's fascinating. First, a new story takes hold. Let's say housing prices can only go up. So what happens? People hear this, they believe it, and they start buying houses like crazy, which pushes prices up. Then the banks see this, and they change reality by making it easier to get a loan. And that just reinforces the original belief. The loop gets tighter and tighter, creating a huge bubble, right up until the gap between the story and the reality gets too big to ignore. And then, pop! But these loops aren't just about short-term booms and busts. If you zoom out, you see they drive these huge, long-term cycles in history. This creature, this serpent, it has its own rhythms that play out over decades. They're called Kondratiev waves. These are massive, 50 or 60-year cycles that are kicked off by some new technology. Each wave is like the serpent shedding its skin. You had the age of steam and textiles, then railways and steel, then electricity, then IT and oil, which of course brings us to the big question: what's the next wave? And this is where it gets really interesting for us right now. According to this framework, we are in a very specific moment in time. We're in the winter of that last IT wave. Things feel slow, there's a lot of debt, but we're also in the spring of the next wave. And these transition periods, they are always chaotic. They're messy, because it's literally the moment the old system crumbles to make room for what's coming next. So that begs the question, right? What does this next skin look like? What is the actual future of money? And we're already starting to see the pieces fall into place. Money is turning into programmable code. It's not just a number in an account anymore. It's a smart contract that can execute itself. We're building AI that will need their own kind of money, something that can move at the speed of code. People are even working on quantum money, a currency that, because of the laws of physics, would be literally unforgeable. I mean, how cool is that? The theory we're exploring has this amazing name for this moment of change: the radiant chump. I love that. It's such a powerful image, right? It's not about the world ending. It's not an apocalypse. It's that critical moment where the serpent bites down, not to die, but to consume what's old and use that energy to give birth to what's new. And that leaves us right here with one last massive question. Because this whole cycle of death and rebirth, it isn't something that happened a long time ago. It's happening as we speak. So as this financial Ouroboros, this great serpent, closes its circle and bites its tail again, what new creature is it about to become? And maybe more importantly, what new world is it about to create for all of us?